The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, its golden embossed lettering catching the afternoon sun, gleaming as if mocking me. Marcus Wright and Rebecca Collins request the honor of your presence. I almost laughed at the irony. 20 years after walking out of my life, my ex-husband was getting married again, and, through some cruel twist of fate, I had been invited. I am Diana Matthews. 20 years ago, I was Diana Wright, wife to Marcus Wright and mother to our son, James, or at least, I was until Marcus committed the ultimate betrayal. The memories still haunt me. It was a call that changed everything, an accident at James' school. By the time I reached the hospital, Marcus was already there, his expression grave as he uttered the words that shattered my world. He didn't make it. I collapsed. The weeks that followed blurred into grief and numbness. Marcus handled everything, the funeral, the paperwork, even the life insurance claim. I was too broken to question it, too devastated to see the inconsistencies that should have set off alarms. And then, 6 months later, the truth found me. It happened in the most mundane of places, a grocery store checkout line. Did you see Rebecca's Facebook post from Paris? One woman whispered to another, she and that Marcus guy look so happy together, and that little boy of his is adorable. My heart stopped. Rebecca, Marcus's colleague. Paris, a little boy. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and searched for Rebecca Collins on Facebook. Her profile was public. And there they were, Marcus, Rebecca, and a child who looked exactly like my James. The timestamps on the photos told the full story. They had been taken just weeks after James' supposed death. My son wasn't dead. Marcus had stolen him, faked his death, and started a new life with his mistress. Rage burned through the grief, turning my devastation into something sharper. I hired a private investigator, but Marcus had covered his tracks well. He had fled to Europe, using his dual citizenship to bury the truth. The death certificate, the funeral, it had all been a carefully orchestrated lie. For years, I could do nothing but watch from a distance. I saw my son grow up through stolen glimpses on social media, calling another woman mom, celebrating birthdays I should have been part of, living a life that had been ripped away from me. I waited. I rebuilt my life, channeling my pain into something powerful. I went back to school, earned my law degree, and became an expert in international family law. Every case I took on was fueled by the knowledge that somewhere, my son was living a lie. And now, after all these years, the invitation had arrived. Marcus and Rebecca were returning to the States for their wedding, a grand affair to celebrate the love that had cost me everything. But what they didn't know was that I had never stopped searching. 2 months ago, my investigator found something, proof of the fraud, legal documentation of how Marcus had faked James' death. More importantly, he found James. Now 26 and living in London, working as an architect. I stared at his photo for hours, tracing his familiar features, my eyes, Marcus's smile, a grown man shaped by a life I had never been part of. With shaking hands, I wrote him a letter, telling him everything. I didn't expect a response. But 3 days later, my phone rang. Is it true? His voice was deep, controlled, but I could hear the tremor in it. Did he really fake my death? Yes, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. I spent 20 years trying to find you. Silence, heavy, endless. Then, I want to meet you, and I want to make him pay for what he did to us. Now, as I run my fingers over the wedding invitation, I think about the plan James and I have crafted. Marcus thinks he's about to have the perfect wedding. He has no idea his past is about to destroy him. I pick up my phone and text James. The invitation arrived. Are you ready? His response is almost immediate. Ready, Mom, see you in 2 weeks. I smile, gripping the invitation tightly. Marcus Wright and Rebecca Collins request the honor of your presence. Oh, it will be my honor, indeed. The day I learned Marcus had stolen our son, I died inside. Now, 20 years later, I'm about to show him exactly what that kind of death feels like. And this time, there's no coming back from it. The next 2 weeks blur in a whirlwind of preparation and anticipation. James flies in from London, and seeing him in person for the first time in 20 years nearly brings me to my knees. We talk for hours, piecing together the missing years. I always felt something was off. James admits one evening as we sit in my living room, old photographs spread between us. Marcus, Dad, would get weird whenever I asked about you. Rebecca told me you had died when I was little, but things never added up. I reach for his hand. Now you know the truth. He nods, his jaw tightening. And now, it's time for him to know what it feels like to lose everything. I handed James a photograph, his 6th birthday party, the last one we'd celebrated together. This was right before he took you. I murmured, you wanted a Spider-Man cake, but I accidentally ordered Batman. You cried for 10 minutes straight. James chuckled, a genuine, warm sound, but then his face grew serious. I remember that, vaguely, he said, his fingers tracing the edges of the photo. I remember someone singing. Was that you? Yes, I whispered, my throat tightening. I always sang off-key on purpose because it made you laugh. He stared at the image for a long moment. All these years, he said, his voice thick with emotion, I thought those memories were dreams or just my imagination. Rebecca always told me I was confused, that she'd been my mother from the start, but I knew, somewhere deep down, that something wasn't right. The pain in his voice gutted me. Marcus hadn't just stolen my son, he'd stolen James's truth, his history, the very foundation of who he was. And tomorrow, he would finally face what he had done. The wedding was set for St. Patrick's Cathedral, an extravagant affair with over 300 guests. Marcus had built a lucrative investment firm in Europe, and this wedding would be his crowning achievement, a celebration of the life he had built on the ruins of mine. The night before, sleep eluded me. I stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker. 20 years ago, I had been a broken woman, believing my son was gone forever. Now, I was stronger, wiser, and finally ready to take back what had been stolen. My phone buzzed, a message from Rebecca's sister, Emma, our unlikely ally. Everything's set, her text read, the video presentation is loaded into the system, they have no idea. A slow smile spread across my lips. Marcus and Rebecca had asked Emma to put together a sentimental video montage for the reception, a highlight reel of their so-called love story. Instead, she had created something very different, a damning exposé, documents, photographs, emails, all the proof of how Marcus had faked James's death. By this time tomorrow, their perfect world would be nothing but ashes. The morning of the wedding was bright and clear. I dressed carefully, choosing an elegant navy blue dress, polished but unassuming. I wasn't there to steal the spotlight, not yet. James arrived at my apartment, looking sharp in his tailored suit. The resemblance to Marcus was striking, but the kindness in his eyes set them apart. Ready? He asked, offering me his arm. I took a deep breath. More than ready. The drive to the cathedral was quiet, both of us lost in thought. When we arrived, guests were already streaming inside, dressed in their finest. Marcus had spared no expense, flower arrangements everywhere, a red carpet on the steps, uniformed attendants guiding people to their seats. Through the grand entrance, I caught a glimpse of Marcus standing at the altar, beaming, even with the streaks of silver in his dark hair. He still looked as smug and self-assured as ever. Rebecca stood with her bridesmaids, radiant in lace and silk, utterly unaware that her perfect day was about to become a nightmare. James and I stayed in the car, waiting for the right moment. You sure about this? James asked, his fingers drumming against his knee. We could still walk away. I turned to him, this man, my son, stolen from me but now by my side. No, I said firmly, he needs to answer for what he did. You deserve the truth. We both do. James nodded, his jaw tightening. Then let's finish this. We stepped out of the car just as the wedding march began. Perfect timing. All eyes would be on Rebecca as she walked down the aisle. No one would notice us slipping through the side entrance. Emma was waiting, ushering us to our designated seats near the middle of the cathedral. From here, we had the perfect vantage point to see Marcus's face as everything unraveled. The ceremony began. Marcus stood at the altar, eyes shining as Rebecca approached. He was basking in his perfect moment, utterly oblivious. I felt a fierce satisfaction knowing that in mere minutes, his world would crumble. I caught Emma's gaze. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Everything was ready. Then, the priest spoke. If anyone here has any reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. Silence. Then, I stood. A murmur rippled through the cathedral as heads turned. Marcus's eyes met mine. He froze. For a heartbeat, he simply stared, as if his brain couldn't process what he was seeing. Then his gaze shifted to James. I watched as every drop of blood drained from his face. Beside him, Rebecca turned, her brows knitting in confusion. Then she saw James. Her breath hitched. And then, the screen behind them flickered to life. The first image appeared. A scanned copy of James's original death certificate, fake. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The next image, flight records from 2 decades ago, Marcus, Rebecca, and James traveling under falsified documents. A hushed, confused whispering spread through the cathedral. Then came the emails, Marcus's emails, the ones detailing the plan, the deception, the cover-up. And finally, the photo, the one that had shattered everything for me. James at 3 years old, asleep in my arms. The caption beneath it, written in my own hand, my baby, my heart, forever. The air in the cathedral turned electric. Guests turned to one another in stunned disbelief. Marcus stumbled backward. No, this isn't what it looks like. But his voice was drowned out by the collective realization sweeping the room. Rebecca was shaking her head, her face twisted in horror. Tell me this isn't true, Marcus, tell me. James stepped forward. His voice was quiet, controlled. Hello, Dad. The entire church went still. Marcus opened his mouth. No words came. James took another step. Or should I call you by your real title, kidnapper? And just like that, Marcus Wright's carefully constructed world imploded. She saw James. The bouquet slipped from her hands, hitting the floor with a soft thud. No, Rebecca whispered, it's impossible. James stood beside me, tall and composed. Hello, Dad, he said, his voice steady. Or should I say Marcus, since you're clearly not the father you pretended to be. A hush fell over the cathedral. The priest looked between us, his face puzzled. I'm sorry, what exactly is happening here? What's happening? I said, stepping into the aisle, my voice ringing through the vaulted ceilings. Is the exposure of a 20-year fraud. Gasps rippled through the guests, murmurs grew louder, phones were pulled out, cameras recording what was quickly becoming the scandal of the year. Marcus Wright didn't just leave his wife, I continued, he faked his son's death and stole him away to start a new life. A frantic, disbelieving energy filled the air. Some guests turned to Marcus, eyes wide with shock. Others looked at Rebecca, waiting for an explanation. Emma, I called, would you mind showing everyone what we found? Emma, stationed near the audiovisual controls, pressed a button. The massive screens, intended to display a romantic montage of Marcus and Rebecca's love story, flickered to life. Instead of glowing pictures and soft music, a series of documents appeared. A falsified death certificate, tampered medical records, flight logs showing Marcus leaving the country with a child listed under a fake name, email exchanges detailing the entire scheme. The murmurs turned into shocked exclamations. This is ridiculous, Marcus sputtered, his voice rising in desperation. Diana, you're delusional, you need help. No, Dad, James cut in, his voice sharp, you're the one who needs help. I found the letters, Mom's letters, the ones she wrote trying to find me, the ones you hid for years. Rebecca swayed slightly, her flawless makeup now streaked with tears. Marcus, she whispered, her voice cracking, what is he talking about? What letters? I reached into my purse, pulled out my phone, and pressed play. Marcus's voice, cold, calculating, 20 years younger, filled the cathedral speakers. Make sure it's airtight. His mother can never know he's alive. I'll transfer the rest of the money once we're safely out of the country. A stunned silence followed. Then chaos. People turned to one another in shock. Some gasped, some cursed. James took a step forward, his voice shaking with restrained fury. All these years, you told me my mother was dead. You made me believe I was crazy when I had memories of her. Do you have any idea what that did to me? Marcus's face had drained of all color. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Son, I can explain. I'm not your son, James snapped. Not anymore. A father doesn't do what you did. A father doesn't steal a child from his mother and spend 20 years lying about it. Beside Marcus, Rebecca had backed away, horror dawning on her face. You told me she abandoned him, she whispered, shaking her head. You said she didn't want him, that she signed away her rights. I met her eyes, my voice gentler now. He lied to you too, Rebecca, he lied to everyone, and now, it's time for the truth to come out. Emma stepped forward, holding up her phone. The police are on their way, she announced. They're very interested in the evidence of fraud we've uncovered. Faking a death certificate, insurance fraud, kidnapping, those are serious crimes, Marcus. The wedding guests were now standing, their phones held high, recording every moment. Marcus spun toward the side door, a desperate escape in his eyes. But two men stepped forward, private security, hired just in case. Running away again, Marcus? I asked. That seems to be your specialty, but not this time. James moved to stand beside me. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt the weight on my chest begin to lift. We had done it. We had exposed the truth. And, more importantly, we had reclaimed our story. Epilogue. Marcus Wright was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The story made national headlines, sparking discussions about loopholes in death certificate verification and the flaws in international custody enforcement. Rebecca filed for an annulment. She later testified against Marcus, her voice shaking as she told the court how she had believed his lies. James and I spent the next year rebuilding what had been stolen from us. We couldn't get back the lost decades, but we could move forward, together. He moved back to the States, took a position at an architectural firm not far from me. And as for me? For the first time in 20 years, I was free. Sometimes, late at night, I look at that wedding invitation, the one that started it all, and I smile. Marcus thought he had built the perfect life, a kingdom crafted from lies and stolen dreams. Instead, his wedding day became his downfall. And my greatest victory. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But I think the best revenge is simply the truth, finally brought to light after years of darkness. And sometimes, that truth comes wrapped in a gold embossed wedding invitation.